So we've talked so much about some of the Empire legendary lords from the Empire, special characters, and a lot of you guys have asked, hey, what about the Greenskins? I want to know more about the Greenskins. Tell me about Grimgor, tell me about Skarsnik. So that's what we'll do today. We'll start going into some of the lore of the Greenskins legendary lords, of the Greenskin special characters, and a lot of them are already showcased in Total War Warhammer, so we have a pretty good idea of, hey, what are these going to look like if they were actually already in the game? Well, we kind of already know that. So what we're going to start off with today is who is arguably the best in Grimgore Ironhide. So today we'll talk about Grimgor because he's the best. So we'll go into our typical lore blurb and talk about his magic items and his special rules. But see, the thing is that we can already compare what they're actually like in the game, just like we've done with Balthazar Gelt before and with the Witch Hunters before. So we'll do the same thing here with Grimgor, and we'll talk about that right now. So let's go into that lore blurb. No one knows much about Grimgor before he staggered out of the blasted wastes with the Immortals, his bloody-minded bodyguard. They were tired and hungry, but they were black orcs nonetheless, and particularly hard ones at that. They proceeded to take over one Greenskin tribe after another, quickly establishing themselves as the dominant force in the region. Tribes that fought well, like the Skull Splitters, were allowed to limp off, but most, like the goblin-dominated Bone Pickers or the Red Spears, were smashed aside or annihilated. Soon, the most formidable tribes along both sides of the northern World-Edge Mountains were either following Grimgor or had fallen before his blood-spattered axe. Even for a Black Orc, Grimgor's thirst for war was exceptional. If a single day went by without a battle, Grimgor was known to start camp-decimating arguments, his one good eye blazing with eagerness to find fault and start a good scrap. 2 days without a battle, and Grimgor would smite anything he could reach, save, perhaps, his fellow Black Orcs. No one knows for sure what would happen if 3 days without a battle ever occurred, but even scarred veterans tremble just to think of it. This unquenchable thirst for battle is a sign that marks out a war boss for leadership, a sign that the orc is favored by Gork. In a hulking Black Orc with unmatched fighting skills and ferocity, it has marked out Grimgor for greatness, the prophet and harbinger of Gork. Grimgor maintains a tough, elite retinue of Black Orc warriors around him. This is the hard-as-nails mob known as the Immortals, a moniker earned due to their habit of surviving almost impossible battles, although rumors abound that they tend to go rootin' after a fight with a bit more fervor than usual. This veteran bodyguard has seen many battles alongside Grimgor, and they enjoy their grisly work. On the whole, Grimgor much prefers Black Orcs to any other kind of Greenskin, but plenty of weedier types have snuck into his camp when the steely gaze of his single eye is fixed elsewhere. So long as they are as things are going well, which means there are lots of other things to fight against, Grimgor tolerates the company of other orcs and goblins, at least as long as they stay out of his sight. However, when Grimgor runs dry of opponents to chop into offal, the many tag-along tribes drifting in his wake are liable to end up on the wrong side of Grimgor's frustration and his magical axe, Gitsnick. At times like these, the smarter tribes tend to keep well away from Grimgor's camp for a while. Grimgor has slaughtered his way across the blasted wastes to the center of the Empire and back, yet after winning many victories, Grimgor returned to Red Eye Mountain. Deep underground, beyond where the Red Eye Knight goblins dwell, the endless hordes of Skaven can be found. Here for a time, Grimgor can appease his need for daily butchery, for the Ratmen feed uncountable numbers into the fray solely to occupy Grimgor's fury. Yet eventually Grimgor will grow weary, striking out again in search of a worthier challenge, and when he does so, the world will tremble with fear, each nation praying that Grimgor won't head in their direction. You see quite the overhyped, but not maybe overhyped badass. I mean, we see him throughout the lore of Warhammer. I mean, in Storm of Chaos, he walks up to Archaon and straight up kicks him in the dick. I really wish I could make that up. Just boom, nut shot, and just says, Grimgor is the best, and walks off. So, I mean, Grimgor's got some stuff going for him. In Total War Warhammer, he's slightly underwhelming, especially in the second one. In the first one, he was a little bit more of a favorite pick. He was very tanky, or is very tanky still, but his kind of lack of abilities or maybe items compared to the Total War Warhammer 2 races as a whole kind of makes him a little bit more of an off-color choice nowadays. But still, Grimgor is quite the beast when it comes to close combat. So let's talk about his magic items. So he has one magic item called Gitsnick. This is obviously his magic weapon that we already see in the game. And in the game, this gives him a 40% increase to AP, or I think it's actually a 20% increase to AP, or no, I'm sorry, 26 melee attack and 40% increase to AP. Now, the kind of cool lore about this is, this formidable axe came from the forges of Tsar Nagrund, and despite constant use, has never grown dull. So it's kind of cool, right? So this comes from the Chaos Dwarfs, and we know that Grimgor himself comes from the Blasted Wastes, so he has this long history in the Darklands, you know, these lands that we don't know a whole ton about. And it's interesting to see, you know, we talk about the Red Spears and the Bone Pickers. Well, in Total War Warhammer 2, if you start a dwarf campaign, if you start someone who's not Karak Kadrin campaign, then you start, you know, just south or west of the Red Spears. So you are already kind of embroiled in those clans that Grimgore Ironhide kind of puts in his in his crosshairs. It kind of makes more sense, you know, why in Total War Warhammer, why the Greenskins always tend to rampage through the World's Edge Mountains, because it's a little true to form. It's true to the lore for Grimgor. He did take the Bone Pickers out. He did take the Red Spears out and the Skull Splitters and had them kind of either join him or be completely decimated. So it makes a little bit more sense that the AI kind of just ravages through everything, whereas before you're like, oh fuck, this has got to be broken. So it's very enjoyable to kind of see that kind of may or may not be intended, but it still kind of plays into it and it's kind of nifty. So here's one thing he's got that I wish kind of made it into the game. Blood Forged Armor. Magic armor, and basically what it is after being forged, this armor was cooled with the blood of dwarf rune priests. Now, this obviously isn't in his multiplayer profile, but what it does is it gives him a small ward save, a 5-up ward save in tabletop, and also a pretty significant armor, 1+. So this is why we see Grimgor with such a substantial armor profile. I mean, he's pretty tanky when it comes to normal orc standards. I mean, he's got 115 armor and 38 melee defense. Now, his melee defense obviously isn't through the roof, but he definitely is armored, and you're going to need AP to crack that shell, in which is Grimgor. He does have another ability here that makes him immune to psychology, and it's kind of cool to see that is included in his profile as well. He does have his WA capability, which is included in the profile too. And Total War Warhammer's interpretation of WA is an increase in speed, 24%, an 18% increase in charge bonus, and then a plus 26 melee attack. Now, WA was a little bit different in tabletop, but I'm glad to see that it kind of kept that overall spirit alive. It was mainly kind of like an overall bonus to attack, and this is kind of, again, gets that spirit by giving that melee attack, giving that charge bonus, making that speed increase. And now with WA being map wide, it's even crazier and even kind of more true to the form of like a giant WA being unleashed by Grimgore Ironhide that just kind of it galvanizes his entire army into like this massive bloodlust. But again, Blood Forged Armor I wish was in the game. I wish it gave a little bit of ward save to the mighty Grimgor. I would really like to see that. Now, one thing he has that is obviously not in the game, we have the Crimson Killas, right? Those are our Regiment of Renowned Black Orcs. We don't have the Immortals. Now, the Immortals, as we know, are his special retinue, his bodyguard. Now, Grimgor must always be accompanied by his grizzled black orc bodyguard. They may join no other unit. That's the tabletop rule right there. Now, obviously, we don't have the whole joining special rule in this game. That's obviously relegated exclusively for the tabletop. But I'd love to see an Immortals come into maybe if we started to see something along the lines of like, hey, these are units that are only reserved for this special character, and you can only recruit them with this special character. I want to say like Alethanar and Nagarath, but that's not too fair. I guess maybe more like because you can get Shadow Warriors in everyone else, but you can only get Nagarath can only one that can have Shadow Stalkers. But I guess you could look at it where what's her name? Averlorn, Handmaiden, Everqueen, her. So the Everqueen can get Alarielle can get access to Wood Elves, wood elf units, like the tree spirits. It'd be kind of cool if he had something like that, where he had access to some sort of special regiment of renown that was only for him, or maybe it replaced the Crimson Killers, and these guys were, rather than having 2 axes, maybe they had sword and shield. Because, you know, our typical Black Orc just has a great axe, and you can have spears, you can have sword and shield on your Black Orcs in tabletop. So maybe the Immortals are a sword and board type Black Orc, which would be really, really cool. I mean, the Crimson Killers are really cool and all, but I just would love to see a variation on the Black Orc that wasn't just simply a great axe infantry. If we're trying to kind of stick true to somewhat of the tabletop, they could have armed themselves with whatever they wanted: axe, spear, sword, spear, great weapon, whatever you wanted to kind of kit them out with. And I really kind of like that approach. And it's the same thing with the Orc boys, right? Orc boys could have spears, but that's neither here nor there, I suppose. But again, wanted to see the Immortals included in some sort of way that would kind of give that nod to them, since they are so big and such a huge part of Grimgore's history. That kind of squares away our first kind of foray here into the fleshing out the rest of the Greenskins. We've talked a little bit about some of them. You know, we've gone into Grand the Paunch, and we've talked about Gorbad Ironclaw, but maybe now I'll go into Skarsnik next. I know a lot of you guys want to talk about him, or Snagla Gobspit, or Gitla de Hunta. So there's plenty of options for us to talk a little bit more about some of these Greenskin lords that are not in the game just yet, even though they do have quite a bevy of their lords in the game. So guys, I do apologize about the kind of slow uploading of content lately. I recently moved and it's going to be kind of hectic for the next 2 weeks, but I promise to get some good content out to you guys here. I've got another video coming out, another Legendary Lord video that I think you guys will really enjoy, coming out probably tomorrow or the day after. And then I've got a video on the Knightly Orders, because I don't think there's enough information on them. Shout out to Weapon Master 470 for the awesome idea there. So we'll have a cool little video on the Knightly Orders and each one of them, their kind of their histories and stories and everything like that. I'm getting my internet upgraded. I had to move back in with my parents for 2 weeks, and hopefully I'll have that internet upgraded so I can stream almost every day this week. So be on the lookout for those streams. They're going to probably be at 1:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Tuesday, Thursday, and then a little bit earlier on Friday. So be on the lookout for those, guys. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what lords you guys want to hear about. Even if they're lords from already released races, I'm more than happy to jump into those. But I am going to start jumping into some of those stuff that has not been released. So as always, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one, and take care.